Welcome to the Amazing Michelle. Now, the reason why I wanted to have you on this podcast is I started following you a while ago, and you did this. You probably didn't even think twice about it, but this post in the car where you were talking about like friends and supporting each other and feeling kind of at your wits' end a little bit in the car in New Zealand. And I started following you since that day, and it just feels like I don't know what happened and if it was that day, and you can dive into it later, but I feel like you've kind of taken this whole pivot in life. And one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show today is to talk about that, but also I feel like moving country and calling a spade and really taking control of your life and not playing victim ever anything is something that can be really challenging for people, especially making big, bold decisions. So, as someone who I follow who feels like you've done all of that, I'd love to break it down. So, a long intro, but welcome, Michelle.
Thank you. Oh, thank
um,
you so much for having me.
yeah, I
Honestly,
just
I can't believe that's when you started following me. Yeah.
which might
Gosh,
feel like a long time ago now, but maybe
yeah.
kind of take us back and paint the picture of what life was like in New Zealand for you because your experience is incredibly relatable. That's why you have such a big following, you know?
Yeah. Well, I guess obviously my background is a registered nurse, so I come from a small town in the North Island. So everyone knows everyone. I went to a small school. Even my partner always says like we can't go anywhere without you knowing someone because when you're in a small town, you just know everyone. And I guess moving to the big city, I had like a big, I guess, moment of like, holy crap, like this place is huge. I had like a bit of anxiety where I was like, oh my God, there's just so many people, you know? That was a huge adjustment of my life where I was like, oh my God, small things. I had to close my curtains, you know? I'm not used to just like looking at sheep outside when I'm naked out the window.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge like culture shock for me. And then obviously went to uni, did my degree, and I guess having that change of like moving and friendships and stuff. And I obviously met my partner at uni, and to be honest with you, he's been really inspiring to me in terms of really helping me with my mindset. You know, like when I first started Instagram and things like that, I didn't quite fully invest myself and put myself out there because you know you can feel, I guess, vulnerable. And I guess this was in a day and age where you could just post a pretty picture. You didn't have to have personality and stuff. You know, like there was no substance to a lot of great big influences. And I guess that barrier of, you know, caring what other people think and all of that sort of stuff really held me back. And I guess coming from a small town, there's a lot of negativity where, and I guess tall poppy syndrome in New Zealand, where if you're doing things, people kind of have this attitude of like, what are you trying to prove? Like, what are you doing? You know, um, which is really hard when you're a small creator. You already have self-doubt. Everyone experiences it. Like it's just part of life. And I think just overcoming that barrier, being like, you know what, I'm probably never going to see these people again. Like, you've just got to do it for yourself. And half the time, people are looking because they're like, I wish I had the confidence to do that. You know, like that actually 90% of people are looking like, wow, I wish I could have the confidence to do that. And there's only probably 10% of people being like, oh, what are you doing? You know, it's literally all in our head. And I think once I started to, I guess, accept that, I just started to put myself out there a lot more, and that attracted a lot more people. And people were like, oh, it's just nice to have like just a general Joe. And I'm like, good, because that's all I am, you know? So yeah, that, I guess that's where I kind of started the barrier. And I guess having friendships and things like that, you have your people that you're friends with for a long time. And I guess my mindset started to change. And I really wanted people to not think that, you know, just because I've got followers or I've changed as a person or I've become something different and I think I'm too good. It was more so that I couldn't relate to people anymore because my mindset was different, if that makes sense, you know? And it was more so like,
What do you break that down for us? Because mindset can be, were you starting to think more positively, more open-minded,
yeah. And
bigger? Like
bigger.
what mindset
I
shift do
was
you think?
thinking bigger. Like I was almost like delusional, if that
Okay,
makes
great,
sense.
perfect.
Yeah. And
Yeah, yeah.
like, yes, I just was thinking bigger. And sometimes when I was around people that, you know, was like, would explain their situations in always a negative mindset. And I've always been the friend that's like, oh, maybe think about it like this. I was always very optimistic.
Cool.
And I guess it became like I'm a big empath person. So when people share their stuff with me, I take it home a lot with me. And so I noticed it really started to affect my own energy. And I was like, oh my God, I'm feeling like I'm always leaving these conversations feeling like my cup has been emptied, and which is fine and completely normal. It's you've got to be that friend to be there for other people, but when it's affecting your own, mindset and things, I realized I started to be around, some people that were in a very growth mindset, and I was like, oh my God, the conversation is just really different, and I guess I just always left being like, wow, like I feel inspired. I don't feel, and I guess I left conversations where people I'd be on, I guess other friends that I had grown up with, the conversation almost felt like whenever I explained what I was doing, how they were doing, they would take it as I'm gloating, or but I'm genuinely just saying what I'm doing. And so I kind of got to the mindset where I was like, you can't genuinely ask someone how they're doing if you're not ready to hear what they're doing and walk away with a negative attitude about it. If anything, if someone's doing something amazing, I walk away and be like, damn, that makes me so inspired. Like I want to do that,
Yeah.
not in a jealousy sense. And so I guess really separating the two. And I'm very old school. I think I've grown up like a bit older, so I've noticed like small things. I guess I matured quite fast, which is like a good and a bad sense.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no, like I have no negative attitude towards previous friends that I'm friends with. I would genuinely, like if someone messaged me the other day, I'd be like I'm genuinely, but I just, yeah, I think there's that kind of stigma between influencers that we're this thing when
Mm.
we're really just normal people
Yeah,
with everyday problems, and we just
the
give it to people about it.
I like that switch in mindset because I do think, and it's you have to be careful. You have to kind of put up boundaries because if you're around too much scarcity mindset, people who, maybe are in a funk at the moment, which you're right. Sometimes you have to step in and be that friend. But if you're constantly around, like a very separate example, but for example, here in LA, there's an actors strike. So a lot of people have been without work or without opportunity for like 100 days. I have learned as someone who has like depression and anxiety, if I engage in too much of that online or whatever, then I start to spiral. So I have to, like, whilst I support the strike and all of that, I have to try and hold on to hope or other opportunities or other things, because I know that if I get sucked in, it's much harder for me to get myself out. So I think that's kind of like what you're saying is like when you're aware of the conversations that are going on around you and you just kind of take a toll of like, did this fill my cup or empty it? Did it leave me feeling good or bad? And if you're experiencing too much, and it can be really hard if you're in relationship with someone who's going through a season like that, or perhaps you're in a work
100%.
environment. I'd love to know, when you said you really admired your partner's mindset, what about him, if you don't mind speaking about
Yeah,
him, about
yeah.
his mindset is inspiring to you, or how does he deal with situations so we can all take a token?
Yeah, no, no, literally. I guess like whenever I'm having low days, like he has a very strong mindset, which I really love. I still remember having like 2,000 followers sitting in the car, and I literally said to him, this was probably like 5 years ago, and I was like, I really want this. And he's like, you've just got to do it. Like you can't care what anyone thinks. And even now, like I think he really pulls me up on it, and I think that's why we balance each other really well. Is if I ever have low days or feel thing, he's like, just it's normal, babe. Like,
Mm.
and I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like, stop spiraling about it. Like, okay, you feel flat today. Like, what do you feel like doing? And so it's more just like accepting and being aware of the situation. And I'm very lucky and very fortunate to say that I haven't really experienced like depression or any sort of severe, I don't know how, but I just
It's
haven't.
okay. Don't
Yeah. I
don't feel
mean,
bad about it. That's a
no,
really good thing.
but like sometimes it's really hard for me to sometimes And sometimes some people could take it the wrong way when I talk to people that have experienced it. And when I talk about it, I'm like, oh, it's just like a mindset thing. And I feel bad because I can't relate because I haven't experienced it enough myself, that I haven't let myself let it control me.
Yeah.
So I guess I've had a very open mindset of things. And whenever I'm like, okay, babe, like you're feeling a bit flat, that's normal. That's the first thing, is accepting that that is just normal. And I think having less expectations, like you can have standards of things that you expect,
Mm.
but having no expectations to be disappointed, you know, like when I go to a cafe and they make my eggs wrong, like it's just eggs, you know, like I can't let, like I could easily let get angry being like, oh my god, you cooked my eggs wrong, you know. And it's just like, think about it from the other perspective. This person's a hardworking cafe, they're really busy, this wait staff's like probably not getting paid much, you
Yeah.
know, like it's just eggs at the end of the day. You probably won't come back to the cafe, just leave it at that, you know. Like I don't let small stuff let it affect the rest of my day. And I guess if I am feeling flat, I'm like, okay, I don't feel like gymming, go for a walk. Like I try to find ways that make me feel good,
Mhm.
even if I'm not feeling great, even if that's just sitting with a coffee and sitting at the beach. Like sometimes that's it. And then I walk away and be like, I feel so good. You
That's
know,
good.
I try not to let it bring it. It's one thing to let yourself have one of those days, but to let it have, I guess, a roll on effect. I try my best to to not let it. And I don't know, I guess it's a very good mindset. I guess Nate has really helped me in that sense, and saying, you know, sometimes bringing me back to earth when I have anxiety about things, because it's normal to feel anxious about everything. We're all human beings. It's a normal emotion. I think, yeah, I guess accepting that it's normal is the first part to, I guess, it.
Yeah, totally. And I am curious, like making a big jump, like moving country, and because it's fresh for you, I did it about a decade ago, and like I'm like, yeah, it's fine, like not a big deal. I know there are plenty of people who are sitting in a situation that they are not happy with. Now,
Yeah.
you and I are cut from the same cloth, but like, that just won't do for me. I'm like, well, what are we going to do about it? If you could kind of give some advice to someone who's in that situation, considering you've just done it, if they do want or whatever, what was kind of that process like for you? Did you just kind of have a goal and you went with it, or was there a lot of emotion attached to moving?
There was a hell of a lot of emotion attached to it,
Okay.
because I guess I'm just freshly 25.
Mhm.
There, you grow up with this mindset. By the time you're 25, you're going to have a house, you're going to have kids, you get like, I don't know if it's just a woman thing, but we just have this. I don't know. It's the movies probably, but
Totally.
you
Or
know,
it's
we
like
have
playing like Barbie when you're younger and like she's done all of this, and having a timeline in the corner of your screen is also not helpful. Like that's
no
been a huge stress of mine because I'm
100%.
like, oh, I never acknowledge the good things I'm done because it hasn't been done on the timeline in which I thought it would be. So
Yeah, and that was really hard for me to let go, I guess, because, you know, the thing is to, it's a very old school mindset, I've really come to realize. Because the thing was, you grow up, you have kids, you get a good job, support your career. And like that's all and well, that's no, you know, um, demanding, I guess, other people that are doing that. That was my goal. You know, I was striving to get a house. I was working in the hospital, and I wasn't earning great money. I was working mega hours, and I was just tired all the time. And I was like, oh my God, I can't, I can't do this anymore. So I moved into the cosmetic realm, where I was earning a lot more money. And I thought at that time having more money would give me more freedom. And I guess I moved into that, and I succeeded really, really well at that. And then we actually signed on to a house. We'd been looking in the market for a very long time, and we signed on to a house. And it was my 25th birthday, and we weren't meant to come to Australia. And we'd always said, oh, should we move to Australia, type of thing. But we never had any sort of drive to officially do it. We just looked at the lifestyle. We're like, oh, that'd be cool to do one day.
mm.
Um, and we yeah, we signed on to a house, and the following weekend we were like, oh, look, we've signed the agreement. we are going to go on a holiday, because Nate was like, oh, we should be putting this money towards our deposit and all these sort of things. And I was like, nah, we're only going for 3 days to Sydney. You can't spend that much money.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, we literally came here, and we've got a very like active mindset, fitness and gym and healthy eating is, and getting up early. And like, I was one of those people that was up at Mission Bay at 6 a.m. in the morning, rain or shine, and I was already practicing the things that I really wanted. And I guess we came here and we sat on Bondi, we sat on the deck, and we were meant to go to Toddy's, which is a very famous burrata and bread place here in Sydney. And Nate was like, oh, I'm looking for jobs. And I was like, yeah, what? And I was like, oh, do you feel this way too? And he was like, yeah. And I was just like, I think we're gonna move. Like, it just felt right. Like, we
Made
were
me
just
all goosey.
yeah, no, like, you genuinely just know. And the thing is looking back now, I didn't see it, but we were looking for a house for ages. We signed onto a house. The house got like a building report, and there was leaks and all these things. So there was lots of red flags that weren't happening. There was, obviously hoops that you have to jump through with the banks, and there was a lot of backtracking. And I knew I was pushing it, but I was like, very much, if it's meant to be mine, it will be mine. But I also understood the whole housing process is a hurdle in itself. So I thought, oh, I've never done this before, but this is probably how it's like stressful for everyone. But I think looking back, I was like, that was not meant to be. And it was really hard, because I worked so hard in my aesthetic realm to build up a really big client base.
Yeah.
And I was earning amazing money, and I had a lot of freedom, but I was like, to myself, deep down, I knew it wasn't ticking all the boxes that I wanted. And so, yeah, we came back after our 3-day holiday, and Nate was meant to go to Wendy's and that week, and he hopped in the car with no shirt, because here in Bondi it's a very big topless shirt,
Right.
like it's Bondi Beach, you can go straight to the beach, to the supermarket, and wearing nothing basically. And he hopped in the car with no shirt on. I said, "Where's your shirt?" And you don't go to Wendy's with no shirt on in New Zealand. Like, that's just a very, like, you're bound to get really bad looks. And I said, "Where's your shirt?" He goes, "Nah, I'm a Bondi boy now."
Okay.
Um,
Perfect.
and so we that first like couple of weeks, I was just in tears driving to work, and I was just like, nah, like, I it's hard to explain, but it genuinely felt like spirit. Like, it when you experience a heartbreak, if you've ever experienced one, that deep piercing feeling, you just know that's exactly how I felt. And I had a really, really good boss, and she's the same, very spiritual in terms of manifesting and all those things. And I broke down to her and I said, "Oh, I think I'm gonna move." And this was within 2 weeks, and she goes, "Oh, I think you've just got holiday blues." And I was in my head, I was like, "I think it's more than that."
Yeah. No.
So yeah,
Wow.
we came home, and I said, "Yeah, I think we're going to move." And so we pulled out of the house. We had to have a deadline decision by that Friday. We pulled out, and as soon as we pulled out, we just had this instant, like,
Wait.
like, that just felt so good. And I was in tears, because it was something I'd been fixated on for so long and had worked hard towards for so long. And I kind of was just like, I feel like I don't want to look back and be like, you should have just done it. Like, the interest rates were really high at that time. We were going to be paying about like $1,800 a week. And I thought, that's not living. I was like,
Yeah.
I was like, I've got this great income and this great lifestyle. And then I was like, I'm not going to have any life. I'm going to be working to live. And I said, life's just so short. Like, I want to be able to be living to, like, the other way around. I want to be it to be working for me, not the other way around. And so, yeah, I guess 3 months went by. We were putting all our money and eggs in our basket to be able to move. And then I obviously was like, content creation was starting to blow off a little bit, and I was like to myself, I think I'm going to do content creating. Like, I want to give it a go. Like, I'm a very type of person, if I'm going to do something, I've got to put all the eggs in the basket. And I said to myself, I gave 100% to cosmetics. I've done a degree. I can always fall back on it. Why not do something else? And so I thought, and it was so funny because as soon as I made that decision, and I in my lunch break, I made this whole, because my partner's very structure orientated. So he's a
Oh,
Excel spreadsheet dedicated to everything. So so I was like, I've got to make a slideshow for him. So I made this
I love this.
slideshow for him of how I was going to do this content creating and how it
Yeah.
was going to work. And so he came home after a really light night of coaching, and I sat him down and I gave him a full presentation. He said, "Go for it." And I was like, "Are you sure?" And he was like, "Yep." And I was like, "Amazing." And then the next day I woke up to 5 new paid partnership emails.
Amazing.
And I was like, this is weird. Like, it's so funny. As soon as you open the door or make a move, everything else will just fall into place. And I feel like as soon as I've let go and really just let the universe do its thing, everything has just. But I think it's also because I don't have any expectation either, so I'm never disappointed.
Which is really good. I think sometimes I fall into I don't know if you know about like masculine and feminine energy, but sometimes I fall into the masculine energy of like wanting something to work so bad, like you with the
Yeah,
house, that I'm strangling it and I'm seeing flags go up, but
you
I,
want.
because I want it and I'm driven like you are and goal orientated. And I'm like, oh, a no is not a no. A no is just like, I'll figure it out. Um, and so learning to kind of, like you're saying, like, and especially when it is your income source and stuff, there is those pressures, so I think learning to kind of do exactly what you're saying and be more in the feminine energy, know that I'm putting all the good stuff out there and that will come back and reward me, is something I used to be really good at. And I think when you go through seasons of stuff not working out, it can be really easy to switch back into that mindset of like scarcity, and then all you're doing is putting out scarcity, so then you're blocking opportunities as well. So I
Yeah.
guess it's sort of a roundabout way of asking, like, when you find yourself or your mindset, because I know you believe in manifestation, like when you start to be thinking doubt or thinking negative and stuff, do you have any tips for people of how to like roadblock it and go around it?
Honestly, I do have moments of self-doubt, and I think that's just normal. It's
Do
just
you worry though that your self-doubt might be loud and then it will manifest into things? Or
sometimes,
yeah.
like, even now, I have obviously moved into the content creation world, and as you know, paid partnerships, you'll do the work and you don't get paid for another 30 days or the following month. And so, and sometimes some
Yeah.
brands are literally delayed in paying and all that sort of stuff. So I knew coming in that the first month I'm moving into a whole new world. I'm an established creator in New Zealand, but I'm not in Australia, and the market here is so saturated. So I knew that was going to be a really big challenge.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess just navigating that, being prepared as much as possible, being like, this is normal, this is what's going to happen. And yeah, there was definitely moments where I was like, oh my God, like, am I doing the right thing? And, like Nate had his Excel spreadsheet. So he was like, yep, babe, we've got 2 weeks until you get paid, because then, and then I knew at the start it was going to be a roll on effect. And even now, I have moments of it, and I just have this mindset where I'm like, no, okay, you're going to figure it out. Like, it'll work out. It will. I'm like, I've just got to stay delusional,
Yeah,
otherwise I'm
great,
gonna
perfect.
cry.
No, no, I'm right there with
And
you.
as soon as I say those words, something comes up, an email comes up, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. I'm like, this is just another whole level of, like, as soon as you just let yourself immerse in it, it just happens. And everyone always says as well, like, oh, you're so lucky. But the thing is like, you have to be doing the work. Like, I had to be,
Yeah, you're not
if
just
I,
sitting there in Sydney like, I'm ready.
yeah, no, like, you know,
Yeah.
like, if you have to be doing the things that you want, like people talk about, I want to earn this, I want to have this. And it's like, but you've got to start practicing those things. And that's why when I lived even back in New Zealand, I was like, I want to become a morning person. And I got up every day at 6 a.m. and I was like, you've just got to keep the promises to yourself. Like, the only way that you can outprove, I guess, self-doubt is you've got to keep the promises to yourself first. You can't expect anyone else to keep the promises if you can't keep them for yourself. If you say you're going to go to the gym, go to the gym. And like, don't get me wrong, we all have those days where I'm like, I really don't feel like going today, and it's like, okay, how can I move my body in another way? Go for a walk. Like, a walk takes no energy, really. Like, you can burn 500 calories just doing, a walk to the supermarket and back. And so, yeah, I guess I can't really answer your question, but I did a bit of a roundabout
there. No, that does answer it. I think that's a a beautiful answer. And yeah, it's really exciting to talk to you in this chapter, because I know that your story, whether you're aware of it or not, is inspiring a lot of people. I think it's really hard to leave your comforts, and you were in a situation that was fine.
Yeah.
You admit it was fine, but
like, there was nothing. That's the thing as well, is people think that when you move, there's something wrong. And there was literally nothing wrong. Like, if anything, there is a lot of people that probably wanted exactly what I had. I just have this real big desire of like, there's going to be more. Like, I already see my life. Like, I already know what car I'm like. I actually spoke to Georgie Stevenson. You may or not know her. She has a podcast as well, and I saw her at the recent Naked Harvest event, and I did go up to her and I said, like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, in lockdown, I was working as a nurse and I listened to your podcast, and she said, close your eyes and manifest the life that you want. And like, think about it. It's like, oh yeah, I want this car and I want this thing, but like, think about the feeling. Like, how do you feel when you wake up in the morning? What are you doing? Do you have two kids? Do you have one kid? Do you have no kids? What are you doing in the morning? What does it look like? Are you pouring a coffee? Are you getting a sunrise? Like, what does your day routine look like for you in your life? And then I just looked at it and I was like, I tell you what, a nursing salary is not going to get me it.
yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
And I was like, the thing that I'm doing right now is not doing the things that I want. And so I thought, okay, I need to make a change. So I made a change. And then I realized I had, began to have financial freedom, but I didn't have time freedom, and I didn't have, you know, location freedom. I had to be stuck there for clients. I had to be at this time at this work. And I thought to myself, imagine having time freedom, financial freedom, and location freedom. Like, imagine being able to earn what I earn anywhere in the world and to be doing it whenever I want to do it. And I was like, shit, I'm just getting paid to live. And I was like, that's pretty awesome. And I was like, what if I tried? Like, people, I feel like in New Zealand, it's a really bad culture where it's like frowned upon to try. Like,
I think it's getting better. I try not to shit on it too. I do think it's getting better, but I do agree with you. Until you've reached success, because you trying, unfortunately, for some weird reason, makes everybody feel like you're shitting on them. Like, it's like you're taking away, like, you trying is highlighting for me my insecurities of not trying. And it's like, that's what makes people uncomfortable. And it's such a weird.
Even now that
change anything for me, except for being like, that's fucking awesome, and I hope she gets it. And if she does, I'll read the book when she sells it and try figure it out. Like,
yeah, exactly. And I think even since moving here, it's so weird. I get a lot of Kiwis being like, "Oh my god, it's so cool to see a Kiwi striving," and I'm like, y'all didn't say that when I was doing the same shit back in New Zealand. I'm like, I'm really confused,
Which I think
like,
we
cool.
want it. We're just hesitant, and it's yeah, I wish that would shift. I'm trying my best. I'm trying to be like the most supportive cheerleady friend, because I think that's a huge shift that we can make today, is like supporting your friend's business, supporting their ventures, and and not being the I told you so's when things don't work out.
100%. And that's the thing as well, is even me now, I could easily come on my story and be like, oh, I see, I told you so. I do, but that's negative in itself, and that's not me as a person either, because whenever I was at a table and I was sharing those experiences, or when people asked me what I was up to, and I could tell they were taking it as a self-reflection on themselves, I was like, I can just focus on the things that I can control. I'm going to tell you, I'm your friend. If I am really your friend, I can tell you anything. I can be able to share my good moments and my low moments. And I want you to do the same, because the thing is, I genuinely want the best for you too, and it gets to a point where you realize that sometimes you can't bring other people with you. They have to have a choice. And so when I let that go, that because I wanted all these things and these people talked about it but didn't want to put the actions in, you kind of am like, come on, and then you kind of realize some people you can't. And so as soon as I kind of cut those strings, where it was like, you've got to focus on yourself and prioritize what you're doing and the things that you want, and people will follow if that's what they want to do. You don't have to bring everyone with you, if that
Which
makes
is
sense.
hard, because I think when you have a good heart, you want, especially if you want the good things that you're experiencing for your friends as well. But you're right, like you can't force
Yeah.
that on people, which is a hard, especially when you probably see their potential, or like,
Yeah. And I'm like, you're so good at this. Like, you
yeah,
should do this. I'm
yeah,
like, yeah, go. Like, and they're like, oh, I'm not sure. And I'm like, you know what? Just do it. Because if worst case scenario, after the 6 weeks, after doing something, you're going to be like, oh, that was for me, or that wasn't, the more that you dwell about, oh, I'm not sure, just you've got to make a decision at the end of the day, because either you're going to come out of the situation and be like, I learned something from that. And even today, like coming on this podcast, I was really nervous, and I thought to myself, you know what, I can just
I'm not very scary, I hope.
no, you're not. And the thing is I was like, I'm just going to be me. And you know what? I might look back on this podcast and be like, God, you're stupid saying that sort of stuff, but it's all learning at the end of the day. Like, I know at the end of this podcast or the next or something else, you're going to be a better person for it. And I think that's the best way that you can be, is just be open minded. We're all people. We're going to say some shit stuff. Like, at the end of the day, I think people know when you've got good energy and you've got a good heart, and you can only focus on the things that you can control, and that's one of them, is your mindset, how you perceive things. If your eggs are wrong, like you can't control how the eggs are made, but you can control how you react to it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I guess, yeah.
So beautiful. I am at my time limit with you, but one question I do ask everyone in the show is what their brain looks like. Now, because it might look like a garden, it might look like a sunset, it might look like crazy cords that are tied in a drawer. I don't know. If you think of your brain and kind of how it operates, what if it was a picture, what does it look like?
um I feel like it's a room full of daisies, but I've
Oh,
got one corner that
yeah.
definitely has some cords in it.
Good.
Yeah.
Great. Great.
It's
And
kind of
we'll
like
get
how my
with that.
room is really clean, and then I
Yes.
have this one designated corner to PR stuff that
Yep.
always, or a chair of laundry that always needs to be sorted in the corner, and I know it needs to be done, but I'm just going to focus on the good stuff.
Fine. I love that. That's a beautiful brain, a very relatable brain as well. If it's a chair of laundry, like things that need folding, but I'll probably wear them, so I won't. Yes, got it.
it's gonna, I'm like, I know I need to deal with it. And that's one thing as well. Like, I've really come to realize I've got avoidance traits, and I'm like, that's just normal as a human being, and I'm gonna work on it, because shit, if I tackle that dragon, it's all over.
Well, here's hoping, not like, hold on, what else is there?
Yeah. Let's
God,
just hope that there's not another lot of doors under that laundry.
God, a mystery door. What is it? Yeah, no. Hey, thank you so much. What a blast chatting to you. Time went like that. So sorry for going a little bit over, but I love you. You're a rock star. Dream big. I don't think Sydney will be your last final resting place. I feel like the world is your oyster, and may it be for both you and your partner. Go tackle the world. Thank you for spreading your light, because your light allows other people permission to shine as well. And I think that's one of the really beautiful things about you. And yeah, it was just such a pleasure. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.